Let me guess, you signed up for every free lead magnet and binged on every marketing YouTube video and thought, what am I missing? Why isn't my business exploding like that? Well, I can tell you, you're not alone. Whether you're just getting started or have an established business, entrepreneurship can be really lonely. But it doesn't have to be. Overcoming your fear of launching or building your personal brand or figuring out how to scale, it shouldn't be holding you back. It should be empowering you. On this podcast, we're going to deep dive into the mechanics of what it takes to build your brand, make your mark, and stake your claim in the digital marketing space. I'll be chatting with people from all walks of life and stages in their careers. I will be getting inspiration from real experts who will share their actual strategies and techniques to grow loyal and raving followings and sell more stuff. This is entrepreneurship from people who are already there making it happen. My name is Jeff Mendelson. Join me and welcome to the One Big Tip podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today I have Jeff Gargas with me. He is the COO and co-founder of TeachBetter.com and the co-author of the TeachBetter book. TeachBetter works with educators to increase student engagement and improve student success. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate having me on. Excited to be here, man. I
was wondering if you could take a few minutes to explain a little bit better what TeachBetter does. At first, when as I told you during the pre-call, at first I went to the website and I got the whole premise wrong. So I want to make sure that everyone understands exactly what it is that you do, because I think it's a great mission. And I'd like for you to elaborate on that a little bit.
I appreciate that. And in your defense, right now, we really are focusing a lot on supporting teachers with distance learning. So that's what it kind of looks like. That's what we do all the time. But what we do, we work with teachers and with school districts and school leaders to provide professional development and training for teachers. So that we do that in a few different ways. One way that we do that is on an online academy where we have online courses, but we also do a lot of in-person. Obviously now we're doing a lot of virtual training, but what we do usually a lot of in-person training, and that can look like a 60 to 90 minute session, a 1 or 2 day, full workshop, or what we really love doing is working with and forming partnerships with either a school building or a school district and actually implementing new initiatives. And those initiatives can range all over the place depending on what the school is trying to do, what their goals are, and what we feel through consultation is the best fit. And then we work with them by providing training, by providing coaching, consultation, and access to resources, and working with them. And when we do that, we are in the schools, 10 times or more throughout the year, or we're getting in classrooms, we're talking with students, we're talking with teachers, and we're getting to know their very specific situations so that we can help support them the best way possible. Along with all that, we do just a ton of trying to support teachers via creating blog posts and videos and online courses and a podcast, and we put on a conference, and we have a speakers network. We did the book. We create a lot of content, a lot of downloadables and things of that nature, and we have support groups and sessions and run webinars, and we're just doing everything we can to try and support teachers to help them be better for their students. And right now, a lot of that focus is obviously on how do you do this from a distance, how do you do this virtually, and how do you do this as remote learning.
That's a really great mission that you guys have put together, especially now. So we're recording this in late April 2020, so we're all still homebound. Mm-hmm. And I see, for example, how my kids' teachers are struggling with the technology, and you would think that they would have had some training, especially over the spring break, because essentially they shut down the schools about a week or two before spring break, so they had a little bit of time to okay, let's get our act together. And then you just realize that half of these teachers just don't get it, right? They just don't understand, what it is that they need to do. So it's a whole new paradigm for them, in addition to them having to teach their traditional courses, which is what they've been trained to do, for what they went to school for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When it comes to technology, it's interesting because there's something about technology and a lot of the training that's available in the courses you take, and just the way the technology has been built, is that even teachers who have always utilized technology weren't necessarily ready to roll with this either, because when you use technology, typically you're using it to enhance a lesson or to help make your classroom a little more efficient. You're not using it to completely run everything all the time. And that's what they have to do now. So it's this really tough shift for even the, quote unquote, tech savvy teachers, right? But we definitely have seen a lot of teachers who have not liked tech or been really interested in trying it out are definitely getting a crash course right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that that you guys have on your website is a framework for teaching, which is called the grid method. And this is actually your one big tip. Can you please take a few minutes to explain what the grid method is and why a teacher would take it, learn about it, and implement it in their classrooms?
Yeah, so the grid method is actually the thing that kind of started everything for the Teach Better team. It was created by my co-founder Chad Ostrowski in his classroom out of necessity when he was struggling to reach his kids in his very high needs urban district. And he created it not knowing what he was creating. He was just creating it to survive as a teacher, and it started seeing a lot of success. And then it grew from there, and that's kind of what started all of this. That's a whole nother story. But the grid method itself is a framework. So a lot of people will get confused that maybe it's a curriculum or an app, and it's not. It's a framework. So it's the shift in how you run your classroom. It can be run both physically or digitally using any kind of curriculum you could think of, any tech tool you can think of, and we have teachers running all over the world, K through 12 and the collegiate level, through every different subject matter as well. Essentially, what the grid method really is, it's a framework for running and utilizing personalized, self-paced mastery learning. And the big shift is the biggest piece or biggest shift is the shift from focusing on the tasks being completed or the time being spent by the student and shifting it to the mastery of the content. So it's no longer about did you do worksheet 2.2? It's now, did you get what you were supposed to out of that worksheet? I don't care whether you did that worksheet once or 20 times. Did you actually get what you were supposed to grab out of that? The knowledge, did you actually increase your depth of knowledge in the subject matter based on that? Same as, so often now it's, well, students spent X many days in the seat in that classroom, and that was for X many minutes a day, so they get to move on to the next grade. But that doesn't actually tell us whether the student actually learned what they were supposed to in fourth grade. But when you shift the focus on, I don't care how long they were in the desk, I don't care how long they were in my class, I don't care, whether they were here every single day or not, did they gain the knowledge or the skills or both that they were supposed to? Now, obviously, some of those other pieces go into behavior and stuff like that. That's another thing. We're talking purely on the content focus. So the grid method is really a shift between how do we focus now on the mastery of content. So what we do with teachers is we help them look at these standards that they have to work with, and we help them break down these standards into learning targets based on what's called Webb's depth of knowledge. And we help them align that then to the essential or mastery questions that they are these questions that students should be able to answer in order to master these targets or these standards. And then we help them then from there, they create what we call a grid or a mastery grid, which is essentially a single sheet of paper that is made up of boxes and squares and stuff, which you can't see because we're on podcast, but essentially becomes your student's learning path. It's their map, their roadmap to get where they need to go. And it starts with your foundational knowledge and then builds up as they learn, so that, and the students are being assessed every step of the way to prove mastery every single step of the way, so that when they continue to get deeper and deeper into that content, they've already proven that they have the foundational knowledge they can go. Because what happens in a traditional sense, Jeff, is like if you're thinking about when you're young, you're in math class, and I say, what's 2 plus 2? You say 6. And I say, no, but it's now Tuesday, so we're moving on. Now we're going to talk about multiplication. Now we're going to division. Right. You're never going to cut up. There was a gap formed there that you're never going to get because I have to get through the content. I got to move forward. Versus making sure you have that knowledge and get there. Most kids who struggle in the middle school and high school levels are struggling because there was some sort of gap formed back usually early on in their education that never formed. And eventually at some point, they started to just consider themselves dumb. Or they figured out that if I try really hard, I fail. If I don't try, I also fail. So it's a lot easier to not try. And they become marked as a student that isn't great at school or isn't super intelligent or maybe isn't reachable. And so what we've seen with mastery learning, and particularly with the grid method, is that when you shift that, these students that you thought used to struggle, they just had a gap they needed filled, and now they have the ability to actually show their true potential. So it's a framework. There's a lot more that can go into it, but that's
Sure.
sort of the 1,000-foot view over there, I think.
So just to clear this up, then the grid method, you would create a grid for each student, right?
They would all go through the same grid. So a grid would encompass like typically a unit's worth of your content, and then each student gets the same grid, but they move at their own pace through it. So you might fly through the first 4, 5, 6 learning opportunities in a grid, but maybe I struggle with the first one. So now you're able to move on because you already have it all laid out for you. You know what you need to do and you can move. So now you don't have to wait for me to learn it. You can continue to learn. I might need some extra time. Might need some small group work. I might need some one-on-one time with my teacher, or maybe I need you to become a peer tutor and help me out. And so now, since students are moving at their own pace, they're getting what they need when they need it. Now, anyone who's listening who's ever been in a classroom of 30 kids, imagine 30 kids moving at their own pace, doing 30 different things is like what nightmares are made of.
Right.
But
yeah, that's
one of the big things that we train on is how do you make this work in your classroom? Because there's a whole bunch of research and data from people that are way smarter than us that shows that mastery learning works better. It's how we should be teaching, but it's very difficult. And so what Chad accidentally did by means of necessity is he created a way that we can actually manage it. We can actually make it work in a classroom of 30 students with one teacher utilizing that. And it's all about the systems that we put in place. So that's a big piece of what we then train teachers on, is how do you make this work in your classroom? So.
That's really interesting. I'm trying to think of the other practical applications of where you can apply this grid method to, and it really could be in almost any kind of online learning capacity. It doesn't necessarily need to be in an academic sense. It could also be used for corporate training if you need to master concepts in order to be trained up like new employees.
Mm-hmm. We've actually done that. We've actually done training with corporate clients, and there are a lot of, if you look at like franchised industries, so a lot of like your restaurants, a lot of them are they're already we call it, they're already sort of gridded out. They just don't call them grids because when you first come in, like, so for example, I have a background in quick service industry, so I'll use that. But like when you come in, you learn how to do your basic stuff like drop fries, right? Then you learn how to make sandwiches. Then after you know all that, and you understand the sandwiches and you understand how things are put together and the time and all that stuff, then you start working with the customers where you might get those questions and you might have to handle that. Then once you get really good at the register, that's when you move the drive-through, which is crazy because you're moving faster, right? And then after you get all that base knowledge, then you move into your training to be, a key holder or a shift manager. And from there, you move into your training to be an assistant manager, and then so on and so forth. So it's just like it's we do this in every other aspect of the world. We just don't do it in education for some reason.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you very much for that. Jeff, why don't you tell people where they can get more information on the grid method, where they can download this info sheet to learn more about it, and if they want to learn more about TeachBetter, how they can reach out and communicate with you guys.
Yeah, so everything's at teachbetter.com. We're actually going to put together a specific page, teachbetter.com/one-big-tip. So we can focus on what I really specifically talked about today. But one of the things that'll be on there is a free course on the grid method, which lays out what it is, why it came about, the components of it, and how we build grids and everything there. Also included there, we've got a whole bunch of free downloads over there. We have free courses and paid courses and a membership over at teachbetteracademy.com. On all the social media platforms, we are at TeachBetter Team. And we have a great Facebook group on Facebook too. You can go to teachbettergroup.com to get that. And then I'm just Jeff Gargas on everything as well. Sorry, on Twitter I'm Jeff Gargas. On Instagram I'm _Jeff Gargas because the other Jeff Gargas snagged that one first. But so that's the best way to connect with me, connect with us. Everything's at teachbetter.com.
Sounds like a plan. Jeff, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it, man.